When I was sick with a fever, my fiancée chose a concert with her male best friend over me. So I left a note and disappeared. I never thought I'd be the kind of person who walks away from someone they loved. But last week, when I was burning up with a fever, I learned that love isn't always enough. Sometimes, it's not even a priority. I've been with my fiancée Emma for over 4 years. We met in college, she was in the same major as me, and I was drawn to her sharp wit and quiet kindness. We fell in love fast, or at least I did, and I thought she did too. We spent every moment together, making plans, dreaming of the future. We got engaged last year, and the wedding was scheduled for next spring. Our families were excited, friends were supportive, and we even picked out a house to move into after the honeymoon. Emma has always had a close-knit group of friends, but one in particular stood out: her best friend, Jake. They'd known each other since high school. I trusted their friendship. Jake was a good guy, funny and charming, and I never saw any red flags. But maybe I should have. The night it all fell apart, it started with a headache. I thought it was just stress. At first, work had been crazy, and the wedding planning was overwhelming, but by the afternoon, I was burning up. My body felt like it was on fire. My throat was raw, and I could barely keep my eyes open. I sent Emma a text while she was at work, feeling really sick. Think I might have a fever. She replied quickly, asking if I wanted her to bring me anything. I said yes, some cold water and medicine. When she came home, she was tired but acted like everything was normal. She helped me take some meds and got me settled on the couch with a blanket. I was already feeling weak, and the comfort meant a lot. But then came the message that changed everything. Her phone buzzed. It was Jake. He invited her to a concert that night, a band they both liked, playing at a venue downtown. It was a big deal for them. Emma looked at me and said, "I can't let him down. He's been looking forward to this for months." I was confused and hurt. "But I'm sick. You promised you'd be here." She hesitated, then said, "You'll be fine. It's just one night." I tried to reason with her. I told her how alone and vulnerable I felt, how much I needed her. I reminded her of all the times I'd dropped everything for her. Stayed up late when she was stressed, been there when she was sick. But she just shook her head. "You don't understand," she said. "Jake needs me. I promised him. He's been going through a rough time." I looked at her, fever burning, heartbreaking. I couldn't understand why a night out with her best friend was suddenly more important than me, her fiancé, her partner. The conversation ended with her grabbing her jacket, giving me a quick, cold kiss on the forehead, and walking out the door. Alone and broken, the apartment felt empty and cold. My head pounded, my limbs ached, and I was shaking under the blanket. But the worst part was the silence. The silence of someone choosing another person over you when you're at your most vulnerable. I thought about calling her, begging her to come back, but I was too exhausted. Instead, I sat there, my mind racing with questions and hurt. Was I not enough? Had she fallen out of love with me? Was this friendship more important than our future? I realized then that this wasn't just about one concert. It was about everything that had been simmering under the surface. The note. I reached for a pen and paper. My hands trembled, not just from the fever, but from rage and heartbreak. I wrote the only thing I could say without breaking down. Hope the show was worth it. Go be his priority. I left the note on the kitchen counter, where she would find it when she came back. Then I packed a bag quietly. Some clothes, my laptop charger, my phone. I didn't want a scene. I didn't want to beg. I just needed to leave, walking away. I don't know where I'm going yet. I'm at a friend's place now, trying to calm down and think clearly. The pain is still raw. I feel betrayed, abandoned, and angry. But beneath it all, there's something new, a sense of strength. For too long, I put her needs above my own. I excused her behavior, told myself it wasn't a big deal. But that night, I learned where I stand when push comes to shove. I'm not anyone's backup plan. I'm not someone to be counted on only when convenient. I hope this post reaches someone who's been where I am, hurt, confused, and wondering if walking away is the right choice. Sometimes it is. Final thoughts. I don't know what will happen next. Will Emma call me? Will she explain? Or will this be the end of us? Right now, I'm focused on healing, on rediscovering who I am outside of this relationship. Thank you for reading. If you have advice, or if you've been through something similar, I'd really appreciate hearing from you. Update. What happened when I left after my fiancée chose her male best friend over my? It's been almost a week since I left the apartment. A week since I was feverish and vulnerable, and she chose a concert with her male best friend over me, her fiancé. I want to update you all because the last few days have been a whirlwind of emotions, revelations, and tough decisions. The silence, and then the messages after I walked out that night and left the note on the counter. I expected something, I don't know exactly what, but maybe a call, a text, some kind of message telling me she was sorry, or at least asking if I was okay. For the first 24 hours, nothing. No calls, no texts, no sign that she even cared. The silence was deafening. It felt like she was confirming everything I'd feared, that I wasn't important enough to even check in on. I sat alone at a friend's place, Wrapped in a blanket, my fever finally starting to break but my mind still clouded with pain. Then the text started. At first, just a message from Emma. Please, let's talk when you're ready. I didn't respond. Not yet. A few hours later, another. I didn't mean to hurt you. I just didn't want to disappoint Jake. Can we please work this out? I read it over and over, but I wasn't ready. My anger was still raw, and my trust shattered. What I felt then, and now physically. The fever was finally retreating, but emotionally, I was still burning. It felt like the ground had shifted beneath me. I'd always believed that love meant being there for each other, especially when things got hard. But her choice told a different story. I realized I'd been ignoring warning signs, little moments when she'd prioritized Jake over me or dismissed my feelings. I convinced myself those were harmless because I trusted her. But now I saw how deep this went. I wasn't her priority, and that hurt more than the fever ever could. What I've learned about her and Jake after I left. A few close friends and family members reached out. Some expressed surprise, others disappointment. One of Emma's close friends told me something that cut deep. Apparently, Emma and Jake had been growing closer over the last few months. More texts, more hangouts, sometimes without me knowing. Nothing overtly wrong, but enough to make me question the nature of their friendship. My sister warned me to be careful, saying, "You deserve someone who chooses you when it matters." I started piecing things together. Late-night messages I'd brushed off. Canceled plans she never told me about, and how she seemed distant lately. It all fit a pattern I didn't want to see. Where am I now? After leaving, I've been staying with a friend from college who offered me a room. It's been a strange mix of comfort and loneliness. Physically, I'm much better now, but emotionally, every quiet moment reminds me of what I lost, or what might still be lost. Friends have been my rock. They listen when I need to vent, keep me busy when I want to distract myself, and remind me I'm not alone. Facing the future, I've spent countless hours thinking about what I want next. Do I want to fight for her? Is there room for forgiveness? Or is this a sign to move on, to protect myself from more heartbreak? Emma's last message asked to meet to talk things through. Part of me wants to hear her out, to understand why she made the choices she did. But another part is afraid I'll get hurt again. That I'll lose myself trying to hold on to someone who didn't hold on to me. My initial reaction to her outreach when I saw her messages, asking for a talk, I didn't reply right away. I needed space, but I also wanted to believe people can change. That maybe there was more to her choice than I understood. Still, I'm cautious. If I meet her, I'll need honesty. Real honesty, not excuses, and I'll have to decide if the woman I loved is still there beneath all this. What this experience has taught me so far, this has been one of the hardest weeks of my life. But it's also been eye-opening. I've learned the importance of setting boundaries and demanding respect. I've learned that love means nothing if it's one-sided. And most importantly, I've learned I have to put myself first, even if that means walking away from someone I thought was my forever. To anyone going through something similar, if you're hurting because someone you love chose someone else over you, I want you to know you're not alone. It's painful, it's confusing, but sometimes walking away is the bravest thing you can do. Value yourself enough to demand to be someone's priority, not their option. Thank you all for reading and for the support. I'll keep updating as things unfold. Update 2. When she tried to justify choosing him over me. Here's what I said. It's been 2.5 weeks since I walked out of our apartment. And a few days since I sat across from the woman I was supposed to marry, trying to understand why I became her second choice. This will probably be my longest update, because the conversation that unfolded between us wasn't simple. It wasn't just an apology, or a fight, or closure. It was all of those things tangled up in years of history, miscommunication, and a kind of quiet grief neither of us were prepared to face. But if you read the original post and update 1, you deserve to know how it all played out. She reached out again, but this time, she showed up after her earlier messages asking to talk. I didn't respond. I wasn't ready. I needed space to breathe, to think, to stop reacting and start processing. But then she showed up, not at my friend's house, thankfully, but at my office. She didn't say anything at first. She just handed me a small envelope and said, "Please read it if you still want to talk afterward. I'll be waiting." I didn't open it right away. I stared at it in my hands for hours. A part of me hoped it would contain some explosive truth that would justify everything, that there was a fire in the building and Jake saved her cat or something. But mostly, I expected it to be justifications wrapped in guilt. When I finally opened it that night, alone, it was complicated. It wasn't just a letter. It was 3 pages of everything she felt but never said. Her justification, she said, she never meant to hurt me that much, I expected. But she went deeper. She wrote that Jake had been going through a really dark time. His father had passed away a few months ago, and he'd been spiraling quietly. He didn't want therapy, didn't talk to many people, and the concert was something he'd planned months in advance to try and feel something again, something normal. Apparently, he told Emma she was the only person he wanted to go with, that it would mean the world to him. She wrote, I knew you were sick, and I should have been there. But in that moment, I panicked. I felt like if I said no to Jake, he'd shut down again. I felt like I had to choose between being a good partner and being a good friend, and I failed at both. She went on to say that she didn't realize how much she'd been emotionally leaning on Jake too. That it wasn't romantic, not in that way, she clarified, but it had become emotionally codependent. He'd call her instead of anyone else. She'd drop things to check on him, and she admitted that somewhere along the way, I became the one she took for granted. Reading that felt like a gut punch, and a strange kind of relief. It didn't excuse what she did, but it finally gave shape to the invisible thing that had been haunting our relationship for months. The quiet shift in her energy. The way I felt like I was slowly becoming invisible, while she just needed to help Jake through one more thing. Our conversation, what I told her, we met at a neutral place, a small park we used to walk through when we were first dating. That felt intentional, maybe even symbolic. She looked tired, not in a dramatic way, just worn down, like the guilt had been eating at her since the night I left. The first thing she said was, "I'm sorry. I know words aren't enough, but I need you to hear me say it." I let her talk for a while. She repeated some of what was in the letter, told me more about Jake, about the concert, about how she tried to convince herself I'd be okay for one night, how she told herself I'd understand later. When she finished, I didn't explode. I just sat there and said, "You don't break someone's heart and then explain why it made sense at the time." She flinched, but nodded. I was sick, scared, alone. I didn't need a nurse or someone to hover over me. I needed you, your presence, your care. I needed to know that when I'm at my lowest, the person I'm going to marry wouldn't choose to be somewhere else. And even if Jake was hurting, and I'm not heartless, I get that I wasn't asking you to abandon him forever. I was asking you to prioritize the man you promised your life to for one night. She cried quietly at that point. Not the dramatic kind of crying meant to evoke sympathy, but the quiet realization that no excuse could undo what happened. The truth about Jake, I asked her directly. Was there ever anything more than friendship between you and him? She didn't deny the closeness, but she said they never crossed any physical or romantic lines. What she did admit, painfully, was that emotionally, Jake had started to feel like her safe space, the person she could vent to when I was busy, the one who understood her without needing to explain everything. That stung, because that was supposed to be my role. And somewhere along the way, she let him fill it while I became the guy who paid bills, picked out wedding colors, and got left behind. She said she didn't even realize it was happening, that she thought she was just being a good friend. I told her, gently but firmly, there's a line, and you didn't just cross it, you lived on the other side of it for months. I was just too blind or too hopeful to see it. My boundaries and my decision. She asked if we could work through it, if we could rebuild. She promised to cut off the codependency, said she'd go to therapy. That she'd put in the work, not just to earn back my trust, but to understand why she let it break in the first place. And for a moment, I hesitated, because I still love her. I don't think feelings disappear overnight. But I also knew that love isn't loyalty. And loyalty isn't love if it only shows up when it's convenient. So I told her, I'm not saying I'll never forgive you, but I can't marry someone who made me feel so replaceable. You were supposed to be my home, and that night, you made me feel homeless. She didn't fight me on it. She nodded through tears and said, I deserve that. And that's when I knew it was over. A moment of clarity. I walked away from that conversation with a strange mix of emotions, sadness, relief, closure, and a little pride. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I set my boundary and stood by it. And in doing so, I finally chose myself. Subplot. A conversation that helped me see clearly that night. I talked with my older cousin Maya. She's been through a divorce, so she gets what betrayal feels like, even if it's not always about cheating. She said something that stuck with me. Sometimes betrayal isn't about lies or infidelity. Sometimes it's about choosing someone else over you when you needed them most. That choice tells you everything you need to know. She's right, and I think deep down, I knew that already. What this has taught me, I've learned that love without presence, without reliability, without reciprocal emotional investment is just a pretty illusion. I've learned to stop romanticizing history. Just because you've known someone for years doesn't mean they're right for your future. And, most importantly, I've learned to stop justifying neglect in the name of understanding. What's next? I don't know. I'm still figuring that out. I'm staying with my friend for now, and planning to get my own place soon. Emma hasn't contacted me again since we said goodbye in that park. I think we both knew that anything more would just drag out the pain. Maybe, someday, we'll be able to forgive each other. But right now, we're both living with the consequences of what she chose and what I finally chose back. I'll post a final update down the line. But for now, thank you again for reading, for the messages, for not making me feel crazy for walking away. If you're reading this and someone in your life is almost there for you, remember this: almost there isn't enough. You deserve someone who shows up. Every time. Final update. She wanted me back, but I was finally done being second choice. It's been almost 3 months since I left that apartment. 3 months since the fever, since the concert, since I realized that love without presence, without loyalty, isn't love at all. This is the final update, not because everything's tied up in a neat bow, but because I've reached a point of peace. A place where I no longer feel the need to check my phone, hoping for clarity. Or worse, an apology. Let me tell you where I stand now. What happened after that last conversation, after our talk in the park, after I told her I couldn't marry someone who made me feel replaceable. We went no contact, no angry texts, no late night regrets, just silence. And to be honest, that silence was healing. I focused on recovering, not just physically, but emotionally. I started journaling, working out again, taking long walks without my phone. I stopped trying to make sense of her decisions and started understanding my own patterns, how I let things slide, how I ignored my own needs, how I mistook patience for strength. I also moved into my own place. It's nothing fancy, 1 bedroom, barely furnished, still figuring out if I even like the color of the walls. But it's mine. It feels like a reset, like I'm building something new, from scratch. For me, did she try to come back? Yes. About a month after our last talk, she sent a message. Just one. It read, "I miss you. I still think about that night every day. I was selfish, and I know I broke something I can't fix. But if there's even a small part of you that wants to try, I'll wait." I stared at it for a long time, and then I deleted it. Not out of spite, not because I didn't care, but because I finally accepted that she wasn't the one who waited when it mattered most. Where I stand with her, now there's no hatred, no need for revenge. I don't want to make her regret anything. I just don't want her in my future. We were 2 people who loved each other and then stopped showing it at the same time. She had her reasons, I had my blind spots. But in the end, we became proof that history isn't enough to hold a relationship. Together, she'll always be a chapter in my life, just not the ending. What I learned that love is shown in the moments that test us, not just when it's convenient. I learned that emotional cheating doesn't always look like stolen kisses or deleted messages. Sometimes it looks like turning to someone else first, again and again, while your partner is sitting right next to you, feeling like a ghost. I learned to stop shrinking my needs, so others can feel comfortable. And I learned that leaving someone you love doesn't make you weak. Sometimes, it's the strongest thing you'll ever do. My life now doing better. I still have bad days, days when the memories hit hard, or when I wonder if I could have done more. But most days, I wake up feeling proud of myself. For walking away, for healing, for not settling for someone who couldn't choose me in a moment of truth. I've been spending more time with friends, caught up with my sister, started traveling a little. I even started talking to someone new, nothing serious yet, but it feels different. Healthier.com. I'm not rushing anything. I want to be whole before I let someone else in again. To anyone who's ever been made to feel like an are not crazy, you're not dramatic, you're not needy. You are worthy of someone who shows up when it matters, who doesn't make you feel like you're competing for attention in your own relationship, who makes you feel chosen every day, not just in words, but in actions. Final thought, I don't regret walking away. I regret not seeing the signs earlier. I regret all the ways I silenced my needs to protect someone else's comfort. But mostly, I'm grateful, because in losing her, I found me again. Thank you all for the support, messages, and encouragement. Your words helped me more than you know. To anyone reading this going through the same thing, it gets better. I promise. You just have to be brave enough to choose you.